Hallo und herzlich willkommen bei einem unserer ersten Filmmakers Live. Hello and a very warm welcome to one of our first Filmmakers Live talks. I'm Julia Weigl, one of the programmers of the festival, and it is my true pleasure to welcome the team of the Persian version, our opening film, to the stage. The director, Maryam Keshavarz. Maryam, join us. One of the lead actresses, Layla Mohammadi. Leila, come and join us. And Niousha, Noor. Hello. So today we finally have the time to actually talk, because yesterday was overwhelming, wasn't it? I don't know, what happened yesterday? Can you remember?
What was going on yesterday?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I heard that there was like a screening.
There's a lot of Persians in Munich, we heard.
Yeah. You conquered Munich.
Yes, we did. There's a lot of us.
I mean, how was it being the opening film? Like,
it was so much fun. I mean, how was it for you guys? Do you have a mic?
How was it for you?
I walked into the theater. I had no idea it was going to be that big, and I just had a moment, and it was special, and I'll never forget it.
A lot of people crying. I apologize for people with the ruined mascara, but it was really beautiful, and people like really engaging with the film. At this point, I just watch the audience. I don't watch the film anymore.
And I mean, you don't really have a voice left, right?
That's too much partying. That's how good it was.
Before we really start talking about the film itself, it's just like, because like you said, like so many people came up to us as well saying like, this is so emotional. They kept crying and kept crying and talking about the film. Like, I wanted to ask you, Maryam, like, how do you do it? Like, you've won the audience award, not for the first time at Sundance. It's like, how do you do it? How do you write those like audience pleasers that just catch the audiences and make them really, really emotional?
I'm afraid to say it, then AI will capture it, and then it'll be
I don't think
codified. Honestly, I don't know. I was really shocked to win the audience award again. We were up against so many great films. Honestly, I think in everything I do, particularly this film, I think one thing is that we did a lot of test screenings with people who are smart in the industry, people outside of the industry, to really kind of see, what they were absorbing in terms of information. You have a whole history of Iran and America in 4 minutes in the beginning of the film. And our editors here, Abul Fas here is from London. Thank you so much for your beautiful work. And also Andre, our German DOP, is here. I think what I found was interesting is that people absorb information very quickly. So that was actually not the problem that we had. We were really trying to make sure that the audience was engaged throughout the piece without a moment to rest. We wanted it to be a roller coaster. And I don't know if that's what was the special sauce. It was a lot of people who came together. I think we became a family. Everyone was so invested in the film, from our editor to our DOP. Our music was done by Rostam Batman-Galish from Vampire Weekend. We had actors from all over the world. I think there was something special in the making, and every team member brought something to the table, and I tried to honor all of their work, and I tried to also engage with an audience who's overwhelmed with so much content, to find as simple a way of a story, as simple as it can be for four decades, with a big family. But I tried to always focus on the women and the emotions. And it's also a testament to all the actors, the ensemble, that many are here. We did a lot of rehearsals to try to get the feeling of really being a family. I think people connected to this concept of, you kind of felt that I felt I was watching my own family, because they really did a beautiful job. Every actor, every supporting actor, the tapestry of a film is so much also about everyone who is on the screen, not just the lead actors. So I'm really grateful to that. And I think all of those elements together, that really we were coming to make something special that hadn't been made before. Hopefully it seemed like it translated.
It certainly did, 100%. You mentioned family. I mean, it is a film about your family. It's a very, very personal film. You did bring it. You already seem like a family. I mean, you're moving around together everywhere.
We have a WhatsApp group. What are we eating? Anyone have ibuprofen? Where are we going? It's just like and I have a parallel WhatsApp group with my actual family. So it's
confused sometimes?
Well, yeah, I'm a control freak in both, but no, I think it's beautiful, and I think also what was interesting is that we all are from the diaspora. All of the actors have a different relationship. You know, Niousha's close to my mother, came as a teenager to America. You know, Layla, like me, is born here, but all the supporting actors are Iranians from Austria, Iranians from London, you know, East Coast, West Coast. We were from everywhere. We're part of the diaspora. And I think also we brought our own experiences to the film, and I was very open to also not just be about my family, but that their experiences be part of the story somehow.
And maybe that's the right key and cue to you, Leila and Niousha, like how much of your own experiences and your own families and family history did you put into the film?
I think, you know, I related the most to, I grew up in America. My father's Iranian, my mom's Italian, so that feeling of like you never belong in either culture, I grew up that way. So reading the script, I was like, wait, I feel this way too. And I think,
talk as fast as I do.
and I talk as fast as she does. And we wear the same clothes. We have to like text each other to make sure we're not wearing the same outfits.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, but it wasn't like a cool thing to be Iranian growing up where I was. So I feel like I gained a whole another Iranian family during this movie, and we became so close, and it was just very special.
How about you?
For me, I mean, like she said, I was born and raised in Tehran, so I moved here. I had a...
Here meaning America, not here in Germany.
I'm in Germany. Okay, in United States, that's what I meant. And then also, as far as connecting with character Shireen, I looked into my own mother. She moved to the States also at a young age, and she also had to, she was the rock of the family, and she had to make a lot of sacrifices that only later in life I discovered. And getting to know her mother and playing this role, I realized how much more similarities there are in women, immigrants, and especially the mothers who work so hard and make so many sacrifices. And I discovered a lot of that, in this journey.
And maybe to touch upon that right now, because when in your introduction yesterday, you said that it's just so nice to make a film with so many women and strong US-Iranian and Iranian women involved. Maybe you can expand on that a little, the three of you actually, like what that meant to you and like what that means in the times that we actually live in right now.
I think it's, you know, it's really moving. You have the youngest actress, Kiara, who's in the audience. She's 9 years old, grew up in LA. You have Kemand, who plays my mother at 14, who's actually 14 from Iran and had never acted. And then you have Bella, who is a really well-known theater actress in the experimental theater world in San Francisco. And these are all different generations, completely different experiences. Of course, we know Niousha grew up in Los Angeles. As a teenager, she moved, and Layla in Florida. And me in New York City. We're coming from so many different places. And being able to work with these strong women, it was so moving. Like the grandmother said, the woman who played the grandmother, I really want to make this film because you never see older women be sexual. You know, we're supposed to die. You know, when we're 50, we die. And I love this character. It's very much my grandmother. When I met Bella, I saw a version of my grandmother who had opportunities. My grandmother wasn't allowed to read and write when she was younger in this era. And she had many children, and she didn't have the opportunities. But they both have the same sense of humor. It was like my grandmother passed away this year, and I couldn't be there because I can't go back to Iran. But I saw in this woman the strength, and it was so beautiful to see all of our experiences. Kemand, who's a freshman in high school, taking a role she's never acted before. And she has to give birth, she has to get married. She said, giving birth to a child, I have never kissed a boy. And I thought this is so beautiful. We have so many different experiences, and we were all bonded together by this strength. And obviously, when the film came out, we felt even more honored to be able to portray like a long history of strong women.
How about the two of you?
I have so much I can say about this. So at our premiere at Sundance, I hadn't seen the film, so we saw it for the first time.
I didn't allow anyone to see the film until the premiere, sorry.
Yeah.
And I cried so much because even the parts where you're supposed to laugh, even the parts where we're dancing at the wedding, because like I said before too, these are songs that I used to listen to when I was a kid in Tehran. These are the kind of music, the kind of food. These are the parties that I grew up around. This is what, Iranians, this is how they party. We're full of joy and hospitality and all of that. And it hasn't really been fairly portrayed. So when you think of Iran, you think of different things and not this. So as simple as these things are and familiar to us, it hasn't really been familiar to non-Iranians because it hasn't been portrayed. So that alone is so important, and I believe that movies like this are what is needed to turn a page on extracting empathy from audiences and relating, and that's all it is. I mean, it's about an Iranian-American family, but really at its core, it's about the strength of women. It's complex family dynamics. It's these nuances that we all relate to, and that universality, that commonality that we all have, just to show that is so important. And then, I just love to dance and just seeing, on the big
screen. She choreographed some of the sequences. She even sang the last song of the film.
The Persianized version. It's very important, and I'm very grateful to have been a part of it.
Leila, do you have something to add to that?
Just quickly, I think being able to work with them two, all the other amazing women and the men in this movie, we all became such a family, and I think there was so much support on and off screen, and when we weren't working, we were hanging out and wanted to be together, and I think that really helped with the end results, because we all loved each other by the end of it.
We really want to hear the story about the dance scene.
Which one? There's so many. Yeah. Well, it's a musical.
All of them, or at least the one where you spent the entire night choreographing it?
Okay, so what happened was...
So Niousha, she choreographed the wedding sequence at the end. And it's all mostly done in one shot.
Yes, so we were at my apartment rehearsing, and it was 2 days before we were to shoot the scene, I think. So I just asked Maryam, this is what I love about her, she's so collaborative and easygoing, and we just, all share ideas, and she just goes with it. So I said, what if we just do, a Persian line dancing thing, and we haven't
there's
seen
like the Macarena, there's all these line dances, but we wanted to do the Persian version.
A Persian version of that. And she's like, well, if you can choreograph it, sure. And so the boys were at my house then, so I'm like, no one's going home.
You're staying here now. She's a typical mother, trapped them on the patio.
She locked the door and she was like, stay put.
Fun, simple, again, to a song that I used to dance to all the time when I was a kid in Iran, so that in itself is so meaningful and fun for me. And then we just did it, and they're so great, and I think it's such a special moment in the film. Yeah, it's nice.
It certainly is. And I mean, music plays such a huge part in the movie. And you just said that one of the major guys of Vampire Weekend actually sort of made the soundtrack. So maybe you can tell us a little bit how you went for the music and searched for the music. And I mean, like I said yesterday to you, the opening song of Wet Leg is one of my favorite songs. It's such a great song.
The Wet Leg song is so funny because I was struggling to make this film. It was COVID. There's so many actors. It's so hard to make. I was driving in LA. It was pouring rain, and Wet Leg made this song during COVID. It became the #1 song in the world. I pulled over. I said, what the hell is this song? I had no phone. It was out of battery because I never charge anything. And I'm looking, and with a pen on my hand, I write Chase Lounge. So this is going to be the opening song. So luckily it was. But honestly, the music is such an important element. When I was a child, like in the film, I was a smuggler, literally. I have issues. So my cousins really wanted...
I smuggled too.
We were all smugglers.
We did, yeah.
So they wanted, at the time it was either Michael Jackson or Prince, Cyndi Lauper or Madonna. So I was the mule, and I used to bring these tapes, and it was such a big deal to arrive. Sometimes I would be afraid and I would dump the tapes in the toilet, but other times I smuggled it valiantly. And there's that moment when you put it in and everyone gets to dance to it. It's so big. But also conversely, as an immigrant, we were really into Iranian 60s and 70s pop music that were made in Iran, gugush. It was so much part of my culture. That's the thing that bonds the cultures. The second you walk in a party in Iran, you dance. The second you walk in an immigrant party in America, you dance. So that was the thing. I wanted to create a parallel world And then also all of the 80s pop music, Iranian pop music made in LA, as well as present day music. And I have to thank the editor. He found really cool 60s garage band, underground music I didn't know about. So like some of the music, like when they come out, like the Western music, it's actually an Iranian 60s, pop song, garage band that I had not known about. So there's some really cool underground songs that are in the film that I had never heard of. And so it's a real mix of Iran, America, 60s, 80s, present day. And I think the music tells the story of the family also in a parallel way. And then Rostam, he's won Grammys as, the main songwriter and musician of Vampire Weekend. He doesn't do anything. He does very few films. If you look at his CVs, he does some TV. And he has to like the film. So he saw the first cut and he said, I'll do it. And we really talked about how do we blend East and West in the soundtrack. So there's a lot of times that you have like Persian instrumentation and Western instrumentation mixed together. And then we came up with the idea of really in the 9th hour, right before Christmas, and we're about to release in January, what if we did a Persian version of Girls Just Wanna Have Fun? And we had really famous Persian instrumentalists that did the different instrumentation. And I came to Niousha, I said, do you know any Iranian-American singers who can do this? And she said, you remember me?
I said, you're looking at her. And
so I said, you have to audition, okay? I'm not gonna just give it to you. So she
I
came.
auditioned. I went in 2 days later.
She came with a composer and she auditioned. Girls Just Wanna Have Fun. And we had so much fun. And we mixed Persian and English. And we really tried the last song to really be a testament to the movie. And I love this song because I think it encaptures so much of the resilience of the women and just the joy that I think I wanted. I always wanted to make a film where you would leave and feel joy and feel like you knew this culture, but also feel it was American at the same time. So that's why I chose that song.
Good choice.
Thank you, Cindy Lauper.
Niousha, I think you wanted to add a little bit on that as well.
Oh, on the song?
Yeah.
No, I was just saying that, it was just funny because I proposed myself and I auditioned.
That could always be awkward too, like someone proposes themselves.
She met me though when I was
We met,
at a
actually
party.
not when she auditioned, we met when she was performing at a party, again a Persian party. Either you dance or you play music, and they were, she was playing deaf and she was singing. And I was like, wow, you're incredible.
I remember.
Yeah.
So
Then I found out she was an actor.
I went and I met Rostam, and he was very intense and quiet, so I was nervous. And
he doesn't say anything.
He doesn't
just
say
listens.
anything. But when he does, when a person does this and they're rocking to the beat, I'm like, I think he likes it. So he's like, I think it sounds good. And then 2 days later, I went back in, and I think you left the country or you traveled or something. She was gone, and we recorded it.
I actually was in Berlin doing the post-production.
Oh, right. I sent it to her. She liked it, and then next time I heard it, and for the first time, was at Sundance at the end of the film, which was great and crazy.
We shot the film. We only wrapped the film at the end of June, so it was a colossal effort of 2 editors and a whole team to make sure to see if we can premiere for Sundance. It was crazy.
You made it happen.
We did it.
And the good thing is that there's actually a playlist on Spotify, right?
Yes.
Is it accessible to everyone? Technically?
Maybe I can share it with you potentially. It's a lot of the songs from the film. There'll be a soundtrack released also.
Good.
But I also listen to music when I'm writing as kind of inspiration. So it's also some of the songs that I listen to, as well as some of the songs that the actors listened to when they were preparing.
And I mean, you were already sort of mentioning it, the entire rhythm of the film is built around the music as well.
Absolutely.
That first scene with Wet, it draws you right into the beat of the film.
Right, it's so much fun. It really is. And it's a rare thing, this is my 4th long feature. It's maybe the first thing I make that is almost exactly as I imagined it. When I heard this song, I was like, this is how it could be edited. And the editor did a fantastic job. Actually, the editor's idea was some of the opening shots. He suggested, why don't you have her wear the burkatini on the Brooklyn Bridge? I was like, great idea. So we added some, so it was really a collaborative effort. But while we were shooting, he was like, why don't you try getting this shot? It could be a cool part of the opening sequence. So, we all came together, but it really, that rhythm and that funness, and also the words are quite appropriate for the film. So I thought, yeah, it really captured it.
So I want to give the audience a chance to ask questions as well. I mean, we do have a microphone, I think. Yes, it's right there. So are there any questions already? There's one. The microphone is coming your way.
A wonderful film, I should say. But I have some questions, 2 questions actually. How much time did you rehearse with your main actors? I mean, it seems that the way that you worked, it seems, I don't know, they were not playing, on the set, but before, in the preparation of the film, because it's very strong, these, I told you last night, these 5 women, 4 women and the child. It seems that you have you have rehearsed a lot. Please tell me about it, how much you rehearsed with the ladies. And a second thing is that I was, last night when I came back home, I was thinking, why didn't you call your film the Iranian version and you called it the Persian version? And I think it's also purposely you, then I interpreted to myself, and that's why I want to ask you. I think a hidden factor in your film, it's the city of Shiraz. And Shiraz has a lot value for us Iranians. It's the think tank city of Iranians. It's the city that great poets like Hafiz, Sadi, and great spiritual and poetic...
and great accents.
Yeah, so exactly. But also, it's a city that a lot of movements, 170 years ago, Tahiri Qurratul Ain went to a conference where many mullahs, many Iranian men were sitting there, and she went there without chador.
Without covering.
170 years ago. And they were all influenced by the city that your parents were born. So I thought maybe unpurposely you called your film the Persian version. Persian is Ostan Fars, Pars, Persian, and you didn't call your film the Iranian version. So if it is really the happiness and the spirituality and the poetic life and the change, it comes from your Ostan, from your province, from your city, the city that your parents are born.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you
Bravo.
so much.
Bravo that you called it the Persian version. Thank you so much.
Thanks. In terms of rehearsal, I would love to say we had so much rehearsal, but we're an independent film. The reality is, this was made actually quite at a low budget, and my film was almost made, and we had COVID and pushing, and even this was not the original cast. Nobody in the film is the original cast that I had originally cast in the film the year before. But things changed, and then we started totally afresh, and we put this team together. I have a little bit of an unorthodox way to audition people, for instance, and Layla knows this very well. So I really feel like I want to know what kind of person you are. I know you're a good actor. I saw your audition. What kind of person are you? So often, Layla does not know how to play basketball, but I forced her every day in LA to play basketball with me early in the morning. She was a good sport. I would drop my daughter to school, 8 a.m. we'd play basketball. I would invite the men who would be auditioning for the film to come play basketball with us, totally casually. Had nothing to do with the movie, just come play hoops with us, just to see what their attitude was. I didn't care if they were good players or bad players. I wanted to see what was their attitude when I fouled them, when I did, I like to play basketball. So it was an unorthodox way to get at the heart of the actor. I did that. That was something small we were able to do. Layla worked on her Persian just to get to get my Candace correct. And we didn't have much time to rehearse, I don't think at all, actually. We did a table read. Niousha did a lot of research talking to my mother. She talked to her, recorded her, and we all came together in Turkey, and we probably had one table read once before the production started. It was a breakneck speed of 32 days of shooting, but 32 days, we shot, how many? 36 days. Felt like 32. I forgot
Not
the New
that
York
you're
section.
counting.
So 36 days. And we shot 6-day weeks, which is grueling, very difficult. We had one day off, not for me. On the one day off, we would all gather as a family, have lunch, like in my movie, and we would read the scenes for the week to come. And we did that for two reasons. One, so we could get to know each other, but also I had an assistant and I would rehearse and, hey, why don't we try this? It's a comedy. Why don't we do this? And that's where some of the funny moments came. Layla, they were teaching Tom, the actor, the wrong Persian words. And I do this all the time to my American friends. Oh, this is so funny. Let's have him say khafesho. This came from the rehearsal. A lot of the things were changed in the rehearsal process. So I have to give it to the actors. They learned the dance sequence during the rehearsal. We only had that one day a week on our off day. So that was our rehearsal process.
No improvisation. It was,
Mostly the improvisation was during the rehearsal, that we had an assistant rewriting. I had a bilingual assistant who would write in Persian and English. And
I did improvise, cursing the taxi drivers.
she did curse, and also one thing was improvised, and in my real life, I did vomit on my daughter, I apologize. But Niousha was really funny, and so this is literally the last shot of the movie. This is the last scene that we shot of the film. And Niousha said, oh, Leila, what did you eat? And the entire crew started laughing so hard. But we couldn't get the shot because they kept laughing. They kept laughing. We had to do 8
Especially
takes.
our DP.
The DP kept laughing, the German DP. I said, Andre, shh. I said, you're a professional, stop laughing. So that was one scene that was completely improvised, and I had to tell the crew to get the hell out of my set because they kept laughing. But mostly it was scripted. And I did ask great comedy directors about how, I had never done a comedy. How do you direct a comedy? And they said the biggest thing is A, rehearsal, and B, options. So when we shot, much to my first assistant director is here from Turkey. He was amazing. I apologize for being such a difficult person. But, I had to get a couple variations, reaction, just different things I could use in the edit to make it more funny. So that's another thing I learned of comedy, just having more options for the edit. And the Persian version, that's a beautiful reason. I do very much identify as Shirazi more than anything else. Mostly I'm going to be very shallow and say the Persian version rhymes. And my life, I always said my name is Maryam. How do you spell that? M-A-R-Y-A-M. Oh, how weird. It's not with an I. And I say, no, it's the Persian version. And I don't know why this would make people laugh my whole life. So this would be great. The Persian version is the Persian version of my name. It's the Persian version of the story. And it was that simple. It was always the Persian version. People tried to convince me to name it something else. But even before I wrote the first word, it was the Persian version. So, there you go.
The hidden character of your film is Shirazi.
Absolutely. I mean, I was I apologize to all the actors who had to learn a Shirazi accent. I don't know. I grew up only speaking Shirazi. My parents came from 1967. Our language is frozen in time. I speak a very old type of Persian. And it's very much part of my identity. My grandfather was a political poet. He was a Sufi. I grew up around culture and religion being an open thing, a beautiful thing. And so much Hafez and Sadi are poets, were very much part of my daily life. And in Iran, what is so different than many countries I've ever been to is you get in a taxi, the taxi driver quotes poetry to you. Poetry is a part of our life. In America, we have a Shabasher. Every Thursday night, people get together and they read poetry. And I think it's like so beautiful, and it's a much part of my childhood, as is drinking wine and hanging out. And we always say Shirazis are kind of lazy people. We like to party and hang out, and we like to have friends over, and this is certainly part of who I am.
It is very interesting to hear that you agree on like Shiraz being one of the hidden characters, because I heard so many people say yesterday after the screening, it's a very American film. And I mean, that's so interesting because we've been talking about identity and the search for identity.
And it's also multicultural because my father was a doctor in the Kurdish region of Iran. So in the film, we actually shot in Kurdish region of Turkey. And some of the actors that we don't translate some of the stuff, they're speaking in Kurdish. Iran is a country of multiculturalism. We speak many different languages. We don't just speak Persian. We speak Azeri, we speak Luri, we speak it's Sorhani, which is Kurdish. And so we have many languages, many cultures. And it's also within Iran a culture clash. My mother comes from Shiraz, of kind of a sophisticated city, and she, as a teenager, is sent to this village where my mother had to learn Kurdish. And it is a different language, you know. So even within Iran, there's a whole multicultural aspect. Again, you don't get that as a foreigner, but a lot of Iranians they go to Kurdistan. There's these little fun things for Iranian audiences. Some few things I did not translate for the Americans, but Persians always laugh.
But then on the other hand, it shows us like what our societies look like, right? Because I mean, we talk about like underrepresentation or more representation for different groups and minorities. And I think that's one of the parts the secrets that your film has and that you all transpond and transform in your film, that we have, like, it feels like a movie that is set in a society that we all live in, at least in the big cities.
Right, and maybe that's just kind of my viewpoint, and sort of I see everything in that way. It's not a question of diversity. This is literally the people I'm surrounded by and the worlds that I understand. So I think it's just
exactly. And I think what I was saying earlier is this is a reality. So this is what we experience. But the problem has been in the industry in the previous years. It's changing. It's shifting now, which I'm very grateful for, and I think it's only going to get better from here. But it was always this sort of, you know, when the othering happened, or you make films that show a very ethnic experience and not a universal experience, you know what I mean? And then it creates this distance, because I you know, I'm in these rooms and I want to say I'm like you, I'm actually, you know, but the othering doesn't really help. And then it kind of, the storylines could be, you know, very reductive. And generalize you. And in this story is specific, but it's what happens, it's what is reality. But we just haven't really seen it. And then you watch it, you relate to it, you connect to it.
And it's also the inverse. Typically you see a story, all white people, and then there's the one black friend, you know, like you can't have two Indian actors in one, you know, you can't have two Indians in a white show, you can only be one, it's always a running joke. But in this show, in this film, there's only one white guy. He stands out, you know, it's kind of funny. And even, you know, which is just also truthful to my experience. My mother was a real estate agent to immigrants. She focused on immigrants because they didn't have the opportunity to buy houses because they were discriminated against. She found a way for them to buy homes. This is the world I live in. My world was filled with immigrants and multicultural. It was filled with people who helped each other. It's not a question of trying to be diverse. It's my reality, you know. When I watch shows, like when I was a kid growing up, I saw 90210. This is the zip code of Beverly Hills, California, which is 40% Persian, and not one Persian character in the show in the high school. That is not possible. You know, or you see Shonda Rhimes, her shows happen in hospitals in California, in Los Angeles, in Seattle. How is it possible there's not an Iranian doctor, there's not an Indian doctor, there's not a Pakistani doctor? When do you see anyone who's not those three ethnicities in LA? I have never seen it myself. But this is the thing, it's like they're talking about diversity, quote unquote, but our reality is diverse. Yeah. Just for God's sake, reflect the reality of America.
Exactly. Layla, I wanted to ask you as well, because you were born in the United States, I mean, and you have a bit of like you're a few years younger than the rest, so it's like, how is your perspective on the film?
I'm so grateful that there's a film full of multicultural Iranians. I started in this industry, the only auditions I get for my culture, it's to play, you know, the daughter of a terrorist or something that's stereotype Iranian or Middle Eastern. And so with this movie, when I read the script for the first time, I was like, it's a family. Every single person I know can relate to the story because it's a family going through hard times. They're there for each other. So I think watching stories like this is important, not just for our culture, but for all different types of cultures, because we're all living in the same reality, but it's not being shown enough. So I think...
And I think also we talked about sexuality and how important it was to show that diversity, which is both of our experiences, in a way that's, you know, it was important for me that she doesn't reject her culture, her religion. This is often the trope that we see.
Yep.
And it was important that you can have a diversity of experience. You can be a contradiction. I'm truly a walking contradiction. I don't eat pork, but I drink wine. What can I tell you? It's our reality, and I think, but you know, it's also important to show in a very matter-of-fact way that there are variations of sexuality or gender representation or all of these aspects of our cultures in a way that, how can you have a family that doesn't have a gay person? Is that possible? How can you have, you know, there's always the outside. There's all these elements that are present in any family, and it was important that I show that. And it was hard, even when I made Circumstance, to talk in the diaspora community about sexuality. There had never been a film before Circumstance that had lesbian Iranian characters. It was controversial, it was difficult, it was exposing, you know, people attacked me, or they lauded me on the other side. And there was both sides, but it was, you know, I was threatened, all these different things. And I was shocked in some ways, sometimes some of the very negative reactions or for the violence that people felt towards me. And I said, what have I done that's so radical? My existence is radical to you. I'm an affront to you. And I think it's important, it's hard sometimes, but just to speak those truths and say, I'm sorry, but we exist, you know? And there's so much diversity in that.
Let's see if there are more questions. Is there another question in the audience? There's one right here.
My question goes to you. Do you have any...
There's a...
Do you have any imagination when this film will enter German cinemas for the general who are not
Yes.
happy enough to be here?
And somewhere in October or November, it will be released by Sony all throughout Europe, and Germany and France and the UK at the same time.
Thank you very
So we're
much.
very grateful to Sony, who bought our film, who sees this as a very sort of mainstream film. And for me, I think the programmers were so beautiful to write me a letter about why I should come to Munich. And I really appreciated that, you know, we were considering other festivals, but having spent time here in post-production in Berlin in December, I saw it like, wow, it's sort of a reflection of my experience as an American. You know, you have Iranians and Turks and Kurds, and you have Arabs also dealing with this two cultural identities. And, you know, I was a film student when I saw Fatih Akin's, I guess in German, Against the Wall, and English Head On. That really, I had never, ever seen such a film, like that had a Muslim girl character. She's Turkish in the film, you know, pushing against her conservative society here in Germany. I felt I was her. I had never seen such a character. And I thought, wow, it's so fascinating that you can take that experience in Germany and it reflects my experience in America. So I felt that there is an importance within our diaspora communities in North America and in Europe. I thought it was important to bring this film here because I loved the response yesterday, but I was especially touched by a Kurdish boy who came up to me after the screening. He said it was like his story, or an Iranian, a Turkish woman, all people from our community, and you know, no gangsters, no terrorists, and also a diversity of our experience. And I think it's important. It was important for me to hear them speak about it. It was moving.
And we are so thankful that you trusted us with your film and that you brought the entire family to Munich and celebrated the opening night. And there is another screening right after this talk. And we do have another one at the end of the festival on Friday, so make sure to tell everyone that there is still a chance to see it. One last question from my side, because you touched upon that real quickly as well, is like we're kind of living in a time of co-production.
Yes.
Like, how important are co-productions to you? Because they really reflect what we've been discussing the entire time today, as in like bringing cultures together, bringing different mentalities together.
Right. Absolutely. It's very funny because my very first narrative feature, Circumstance, we shot in Lebanon. It was a co-production between France, Lebanon, the Netherlands, and somewhere else, I can't remember. And at the time, why did I do that? I could not get money for this movie in America. They said, okay, shoot it in Israel, and we'll let you do it. There was a huge producer. She wants, shoot it in Israel. I said, I'm an Iranian, shoot it in Israel. What are you talking about? Or shoot it in English. I said, they live in Iran, they speak Persian. So I said, okay, how can I make this film? I would watch films, I would research. I have an Iranian passport. As an Iranian, I applied to the Fund Sud. I found a French co-producer. It was 70% financed through Europe, actually, and 30% through a private investor, and basically everyone almost worked for free. So that's my first co-production. And my crews are co-productions in many ways. It's like I have an Iranian-British editor, a German DOP, an Argentine sound person. I think it's very important that we collaborate to make these films also on the crew side. But my next film is likely a German-French co-production that I'm making, because I could not make the film I want to make next in the American system in the way that I want to make the film. Unlikely, maybe. But so we're using this sort of cooperations amongst Europeans. I'm also a European resident, and how to make films that are challenging, or films that are either genre challenging or because of content. And yeah, I'm very excited, and I've always connected to this concept very, very much from my first film, but no one knew how to do it in America. So I like to research. So I was watching things, and I applied to the Fund Suds 4 times. As you know, I would not take no for an answer. And back then, you had to apply it on paper. You had to mail it. I would ship 10 copies of my script only to get rejected. So yeah, and I learned a lot of French in the process. But I think, you always find a way. But I think co-productions are a beautiful way to bring these stories, and to bring also crews together that normally wouldn't work together, and actors together in a sort of cooperative environment, which I love.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for presenting your film yourselves. A big applause to the Persian version gang, which is in the audience as well. And thanks for being here with me and talk to me. And I'd say let's all head to the next screening, right?
Let's
Yes,
do it.
let's do it.
And thanks to the audience for being here. Spread the word on the film. Either watch it now, on Friday, or in October-ish. Thanks for being
October-ish.
here.
Cheers.
Thank you.